Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I welcome you all to this Invited Talk series under NHP CAST training program. Today, we are fortunate to have Dr. S.K. Jha, professor from Division of Post-Harvest Technology, IRI, with us. So, with this brief note, I request my coordinator to please welcome Dr. S.K. Jha, sir, with a flower bud, and Dr. Anil Dahuja, sir, professor, Division of Biochemistry, with a flower bud. Now I request Dr. Anil Dahuja sir to please introduce Dr. S.K. Jha sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ranjan, for giving me this duty to introduce the today's speaker, Dr. S.K. Jha. So I think I will be the apt person to introduce him because we have very close linkages with the Division of Food Science and Post-Harvest Technology. So whatever bioactive components which we are studying here, so if they need to be developed into the formulations, so we need the help of the people from food science and post-harvest technology. And Dr. Jha is the one person which we always trouble if we find any difficulty as far as the development of the various formulations or various other tests required for the development of those formulations. So he is always kind enough to help us. And Dr. Jha is the professor and the principal scientist in the food science and post-harvest technology. He is the recipient of the Best Teacher Award of IRI, and again we have some similarity here. In the same year we got the Best Teacher Award in, I think, 2012. And he has 22 years of teaching experience. So not only in teaching, so he has equally good contributions in the research as well. So he has more than 80 research publications in the peer-reviewed journals. And the research, it is not only up to the publications. So he has given few steps ahead, and he has developed certain processing technologies, certain products, which has been commercialized as well. So 3 processed products and the 4 machines, because basically he is an engineer. He is alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So he is alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and got entry into the agriculture research services, and that's why he has the 4 patents in as well, apart from the 3 processing products. And most of the whenever he develops any product, so because of our close association, we get the opportunity to taste those products as well. So this is again a good thing about Dr. Jha, because he is he is a person who believes in the teamwork. So he has close associations in all the departments of the IRI, and he is always ready to render his help to scientists working in the field of say development of the various food products. Because of his great experience, everybody gets benefited. So with these few words, I would request the Dr. Jha to please present today's lecture, that is on how to use post-harvest technology and processing for doubling the income of the farmers. I hope it will be beneficial to all of you, and it will be slightly different from what you have been hearing so far, because mostly the lectures, they were concentrating more on the basic science, but now here is a person with us who will be concentrating more on the processing aspects. So I request Dr. Jha to please take it.
Thank you, Dr. Good afternoon to all of you. As Dr. Dahuja said, we are going to have different kind of lecture. Post-harvest technology, we all are aware and we keep listening from technologists to politicians. When our Prime Minister speaks, he also talks about post-harvest technology and what it can play in enhancing the income of farmers. That is exactly the topic that has been given to me to speak on today. Post-harvest technology, how to use it for doubling income, or not only doubling, I say, it can be much more than doubling income, provided we adopt it. Examples are many. If you look at the products, most of us or most of you may be addicted to eating potato chips, either in leisure time or any other time. How much is the value addition? 20 times, 25 times is the value addition. Potato is sold at a cost of, maybe when it is a high cost priced, it may be 25 to 30 rupees per kg, but when you convert it into chips, it is sold at a rate of 250 to 300. That is value addition that you can achieve through post-harvest technology. So, I am going to talk something on it because I have to interact with diverse groups. So, I had actually that how to present. Mostly finally I tried that I should try to share my own research experiences. So, partly I will introduce some of the burning issues that we look for, and then I will come to share my own research experience about products that Dr. Dahuja said we are working on. The source of food, mostly what you see is from plant and animal based sources, and if you look at their shelf life, means storability, that varies from few hours to few months. The animal source, more the water, less the life. That is a simple technique. Wherever the more water is there, life will be short. So, our strategy is, our research is always towards how can we enhance that life, how can we store, if it is for few hours, how many few hours we can add to it, if it is few months, how many more months can we add to it, if it is few days, how many days we can add to it. So, what are the different strategies, on that we try to work. I will be, because not diverse animal sources, I will try to restrict to plant sources what we are working here. This you can see here, this is just a statistics of production of this edible crops and horticultural crops. Now, we can see earlier we used to grow more edible crops, now we have surpassed, and horticultural crops have gone, production of horticultural crops has gone up. What does it mean and what I am trying to show? Because you might be listening that post-harvest loss in different crops is varying to different amounts. In horticultural crops, it varies from 20 to 40%, in edible crops 10 to 15%. That is many times that is projected. These are the loss assessment that we do in post-harvest when you produce. So, when we produce that percent, more you grow, that means absolute quantum of loss will also grow, right. So, we have to find out strategies, because if you look at the loss figure, we have around, in terms of monetary value, we have several billions of money that we lose because of post-harvest loss. And post-harvest loss not only intends to loss of the produce that we have produced, but whatever investment we made in its production, that is also lost. So, this is a double loss. So, therefore, two major issues we talk in the post-harvest or post-production system. One is how to reduce loss, that 15 to 20% or 20 to 40% loss, how can we reduce, and how to enhance value addition. How can we make more money, how out of grain or out of any produce, how much more we can add. Let us see, I will show you the figures. The loss assessment by CFET, this is the most recent study that CFET, the one institute of ICR, came out with, and you can see here in cereals that have, although figures are much lower than the earlier projected figures, but still it is quite high. 4 to 6% in cereals, pulses 4 to 6.1%, oilseed 2.8 to 10%, fruits up to 18%, and vegetables up to 13%. And ESOCOM has found out that in terms of monetary value, we are losing 926 billion of rupees, equivalent to $14.33 billion. This is the cost, loss figure, and this is a cause of concern, and for every one of us, be farmer, be it processor, be it industries, for everyone this is a cause of concern, and we all are looking towards it, that how can we reduce this. When we talk about loss, then loss is not that it occurs at one point. It is because the material that we produce passes through a long chain. Here I am showing 3 for top tomato, onion and potato, which is being talked a lot. That is a major attraction it is gaining. Now here you can see there are different stages, from harvest to collection to sorting to packaging to transportation to farm level storage to godown or cold storage or to wholesaler storage or retail storage or processing level whenever it is processed. So loss figures are different in the whole chain, and that then we actually it comes to consumer level and consume. So in this chain, before we consume, there are chances of at different stages loss of these commodities. This was about concern about loss and how to reduce loss, that technological measures we will look at. Another aspect that I talked about is value addition. How much value we can add. So let us see some of the countries, they are adding value to their produce. Some estimates suggest that China adds 23% value to its produce, agricultural produce. Philippines adds 45% value. UK adds 188% value to its produce, but India is adding only 10% value to its produce. Why? The major reason is that our processing strategy is mainly concentrated on primary processing. 80% of our processing, out of total processing, 80% of our processing is on primary processing. And we do add value in primary processing, but the value addition is very small, and therefore our total value addition is much less than the possibility or the opportunity that we have. So here exists a opportunity for us. There are some estimates which says or tells us that in India only 3% of workforce is employed in this post-production system, whereas in some countries this figure is up to 14%. So this suggests that if we increase, lot many jobs can be created in this sector. This is the status of Ministry of Food Processing Industry, where the food processing industry has been ranked 5th. Then it employs about 16 lakh people now in the country, which is 19% of the total industrial force, and it contributes to about 5.5% of the GDP. This is the status of Ministry of Food, data of Ministry of Food Processing. Now I was talking about primary processing. If you look at post-harvest technology, the whole post-harvest technology can be divided into 3 parts: primary processing, secondary processing and tertiary processing. What these 3 means? Primary processing means not changing the structure and shape, size of the material that we harvest. Say we harvest wheat from the field. So wheat will remain wheat, no change in shape and size of the wheat. So what is change? Change is in terms of cleaning. We clean it properly. If we clean, still value addition is there. you can sell it at a higher cost. So value addition is there, but only marginal. Then sorting, you sort the grain, especially in those commodities where there is a variation in size, say suppose fruits or vegetables, there is lot of size variation, there is lot color variation when you harvest from the tree, plant. So if you sort it, again you will add value to it, then you pack it, sell it. So that is primary processing mainly, and therefore we are only, and our major processing is primary processing, and therefore we are not adding much value to it. Secondary processing is what? If you convert wheat in simple way, if you say into flour, that becomes secondary processing. Means you have changed now. Wheat is no more wheat, it is crushed, size reduced, technically we call size reduction or milling. So that is secondary processing. So obviously wheat flour sells at a much higher cost compared to wheat in clean, sorted, packed form, right? So we are adding more value. Now let us see what is tertiary processing. If you convert that flour into other product, say we have pasta, we have noodles, we have bread, we have muffins, we have several bakery products, we have biscuit, all that cost at a much higher cost than the wheat or wheat flour, right? So if we go for tertiary processing, we can add much more value to the produce, and ultimately everyone in the chain can get benefit of that, right? But ultimately whatever you produce, you do, whether you go for primary, secondary, tertiary, ultimately what is going to happen to future of that? You are going to consume it. We are going to consume that food, that is a food we are going to consume, and therefore perception, understanding the perception of the consumer, how consumer is going to use, therefore just a small perception as consumer that when you eat a food, we are eating through mouth. In mouth we have a certain characteristics that we try to look at. If we are eating a curd, we have already in mind a perception about a texture of that curd, or if we are eating a chips, we have a different perception that it must have a cracking sound. If a chips does not have a cracking sound, we would always reject that chips, that it is not good. So what is texture, flavor and eating quality? Each product, each processed product, and of course it is like a RAM that our tongue acts as, and from the beginning when your mother serves a food to you, your tongue tries to store the taste, the flavor, the texture of that food, and when next time, I mean, you get adapt to it. So whenever you get a new food, it is not easy to exactly adapt to that food, because that is not, if as you have not eaten earlier, you may not have the perception of that food. So you have to first, I mean, train your tongue for that kind of food. So mouth and then gut. Dr. Dahuja talked a lot about gut. When the food goes into gut, the microbiota system, how it is digested, bioavailability is very important. Whatever we eat protein, whether it is bioavailable or not, it is digested or not, is important. If it is not, it has just come out of your system. So gut health is very important, and ultimately it provides what? Nutrition to us, right? So what kind of right kind of food which controls your weight, which gives you vitality, are very important. And ultimately while you eat food, so without food going up, a sense comes to where you enjoy that food. So that perception you get in your brain. These are some of the technologies, conventional and some modified, which we adopt in arable crops, your cereal, pulses, oilseeds. But we can see that the operations from threshing, when we harvest from field, first operation is that you detach that grain from the plant, that is threshing. So earlier we had technology like manually beating against a hard surface, or animal and tractor trading. In many parts of the country, when we go around and we find that people do not go for manual beating, they put on the road and the vehicles pass through the road and threshing is being done, although that is not a scientifically recommended practice, but it is happening in the country, and it has its own problems associated with those kind of threshing. The improved technology now we have is mechanical threshing system, and lots of threshers have been developed and are under modification, improvement in those threshers, so that, because thresher, when you say, what we do, that we employ a mechanical force. When you employ mechanical force, food get a wound. No, they all are living organism. We must treat them with that context. When we get a cut, we put some antiseptic and we try to, isn't it? If not, it will create problem for us. So same treatment as a technologist we have to give to our grains, to our fruits and vegetables, what we grow, because that is, that determines its shelf life. Secondary, then when you have, next is cleaning. So cleaning, now number of machines are used. Winnowing is one of the technique. Earlier you might be saying that manual winnowing was being done against the wind air speed, right, wind flow. Now we have mechanical winnowers operating on solar system or electrical system. We have different cleaning machines. Then drying is again a very important, especially if you talk about rice. Rice, when you send it to milling, lot of rice breaks. When rice breaks, who loses? Millers lose, farmers lose, because head rice only gets maximum price in the market, right? So drying is very important. How to dry, and for this kind of produce, we are still going for drying in the yard, in the sun, using sun energy. Now we have lots of solar dryers and heated air dryers we can use. Storage, earlier we used to have lot of traditional storage structure from different material. It could be of earthen or it could be mud bins or bag storage. Now we have metallic bins, we have silos of very high capacity of bulk for bulk storage of material. Milling has got a lot of transformation, because earlier we used to have hand or foot pounding or rice hullers at best we used to have, but now we have all modern rice mill or dal mill or flour mill, oil mill, solvent extraction of oil. These all are available at our for use. Then byproduct utilization, we used to have less of technology for this purpose, but we are talking a lot about it. Byproduct is no more talked as a byproduct, it is talked as a major product. It is how you can use it for making or achieving higher profitability. So for everything now you are trying, like one of the example is solvent extraction of rice bran. Rice bran has a problem when you mill in the rice. What you are talking about, oryzanol, right? Is it? It is in the outer layers. It is outer layers which we remove. Removing again is beneficial in certain terms. If you cook the whole brown rice cooking quality is very poor. It takes long time and then whole grain will stick with each other, which we do not like for eating purpose. Therefore, we go for, and as a result, when we go for polishing, we have bran, and bran is rich in oil, and we have another industry by the side of rice mill. There is a requirement of another industry because lot of bran is coming out that is rich in oil. So, through solvent extraction, and that way for each industry, whenever we are going for secondary processing or for there onwards, we get byproducts. How to use those byproducts are again a concern and to be addressed by scientific community. This is the post-harvest operation that are required in the fruits and vegetables. What we can see here, we harvest, then there are different techniques for harvesting, and of course, we are going towards that during harvesting, it should not fall on the ground again because it will get injury, mechanical injury, and its life will be badly affected. Followed by packing, then transport from the field, then packing said operation where we give different kind of treatments from treatment, pre-cooling, washing, drying, sorting, packing, labeling, palletization. These are the treatments that we give in case of fruits and vegetables. Then storage, we can store it for longer period of time. So, definitely because for storage purpose, two very requirements are there: lower the temperature, longer the life, and moisture content is another. So, in fruits and vegetables, high moisture is a requirement. So, you have to maintain in storage high humidity, but in case of arable crops, you have to ensure that humidity level is as low, longer will be the life of the produce. So, these are the operations that we do. So, therefore, here we are not talking about secondary or tertiary processing, it is only primary processing, right. If we are going for secondary or tertiary, so now we have to go for size reduction. Suppose you make a slice, you make a pulp from the fruit, that will become secondary processing. Now, a little bit about nutrition part. Because all these commodities we talk about, they are meant for nutrition, for well-being, for human health. We have different types of grains, and it has been found and reported that many phytochemicals present in grains, because phytochemicals, the fruits and vegetable sources are well proven that they have lot of phytochemicals, but even there are reports that some phytonutrients which are present in grains are not present in fruits and vegetables. And another important issue is in grains, most of these are present in outer layers, not in the inside layers. Outer core. Say we talk about rice, we remove the outer core. All the vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, they are present in outer layers, but we remove during milling. So, as a consumption, what we are consuming, the milled rice that we are consuming do not have those nutrients, we remove those nutrients. So, mainly we consume is starch. Wheat milling, in earlier days we used to grind the whole wheat and then used to consume, or the chapati made from that flour. Modern flour milling is different. Modern wheat flour milling is different, where we remove the husk or the bran layer separately, germ separately and then endosperm separately. Again endosperm, the inner white endosperm separate, outer white endosperm where it is mainly attached with bran separately, which we technically call patent floor and clear floor. And then they prepare for different industry, because for wheat flour milling industry, the clients are of diverse group. They have bakery industry, even in bakery, lot many. Some industry goes for cracker making, some for cookie making, some for biscuit making, some for bread making, and requirement of the quality of flour for different industry is different. Different protein requirement, different ash content requirement. So then they mix the patent flour and clear flour, and then they try to supply catering to their requirement. But what we are doing here, we are removing the bran, where the majority of phytochemicals are present. Now because of increasing awareness, when those millers are packing 5 kg, 10 kg packs, and then it got from consumer, oh, these flours are not good. Then they realized, why not good? Because the fiber that we are removing, bran that we are removing, which we used to get in whole wheat flour. So now the practice, the millers, what they have started doing, the bran they have started adding into those flours. So that is because of the consumer requirement and consumer demand. So a lot of reports are there that the whole grain when we consume, then we can have benefits in terms of having immunity from different diseases. Then as I discussed that phytochemicals mostly are present in bran or germ fraction. In whole wheat, it has been reported that the germ fraction contributes 83% of total phenolic content, 79% of flavonoid, and 78% of zeaxanthin, 51% of lutein. So therefore, we must try to incorporate, even if we separate, we must try to incorporate into certain processed product matrix to get advantage, to give benefits to the consumer. These are the phytochemicals that are exclusively present, ferulic acid, diferulates, in the whole grains and not in the fruits and vegetables. But we also should be aware that these grains also contain anti-nutritional factor. Soybean is one very prominently talked about, that anti-nutritional factor and trypsin inhibitor is present in soybean, and therefore any processed product from soybean must be looked for presence of anti-nutritional factor. If it is present, the whole benefits of having isoflavones or having protein the body may not be able to get benefit of those things, because there is I have seen that in young generation, those who are gym goers, they are recommended that you should go for more protein rich diet. Those who can afford purchase at a cost of 3,000 per kg, 4,000 per kg, but those who do not have, they look for soybean, because it has been recommended that soybean has 40% soybean protein. So anti-nutritional factor in processing we must try to reduce to get proper benefit. Well, we have some other challenges when we are dealing with food, then we must also be aware of these challenges. Protein malnutrition is a concern for the whole world and to our country also. Micronutrient deficiency, especially iron, vitamin A and iodine. Iodine has been addressed through iodized salt to a greater extent, but micronutrient deficiency is a huge problem. Diabetes is increasing at an alarming rate. Obesity is also a prominent problem. Cancer, gluten allergy, although in our country, in terms of percent, it is not very high, but absolute number is now alarming, that is coming through wheat gluten. So we have to address these issues while we are dealing with processing as a manufacturer or as a scientific person. We have to take care of these challenges. If we look future food production and processing trends, then here you can look at that from bottom to top, that agriculture production, what we are looking at agriculture production, that improved and faster breeding is one, that different tools and techniques are being used, modified agronomic practices, then reduced chemical input. These are major talk that how and what we should look at production aspect. Then raw material and ingredients we get, so that we go for processing, packaging, and finally final product that we get. So what are the recent thought or our scientific thought or consumers thought is going on? In processed product, we are looking at now reduced fat, that it should not have high fat content, low sugar, low salt, but it should be enriched with what? Fiber, antioxidant, protective compounds, must have low calorific value, satiety enhancing, and modified functionality and increased bioavailability. These we are looking for in a processed product, in the final product. And also on the right side, what we find when we process, the waste reduction, that least waste should be or byproduct should be generated during the processing. If it is generated, it should be reusable. Recycling is possible. Waste recovery options. Composting, can we compost it as a technology? Reduced energy in the whole, as less possible, we should be able to complete our work with at a low energy requirement. Then its life cycle analysis. These are, and at consumer point, what is required? Consumer acceptance. I must be able to, suppose it is a vegetarian mass, India is a predominantly vegetarian country. If we try to have more and more meat, fish based product, probably it will have a limited acceptability, right? So consumer acceptance is important in terms of veg, non-veg, its texture. Safe is now we have FSSAI in place in the country, Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. Safety has become a very huge concern for the whole entire universe, that when we eat something, it should not cause problem to us, to a consumer. So safety is very important. Convenient, we have started looking for, when husband and wife both have started working, they have less of time. They cannot spend more time in kitchen. So they want either ready to eat or where you can 2 minutes noodle type of material, you go and quickly you can cook your food. So convenience is being sought by the consumer. Choice, fair trade, organic. Now a lot of people are earning for this. They are simply writing organic and you pay more for it without ensuring whether it is organic or not, but it is written on the label organic, you pay more for it. So that kind of concern is going on for consumer. Animal welfare, origin and provenance, and price, of course, that it should be available at a lower cost. These are requirements of recent times. Now I will talk about some of the techniques. I was doing my own research experience, how we are looking for nutritional enhancement. These the products before you are the one that has been prepared in our lab. One you can see both sides. This is snack type of material. bajra puff that you see, it is based on pearl millet. Then again pasta, it is based on pearl millet. Then you have a product based on QPM, quality protein maize, as a breakfast cereal. What we have tried to do here is pearl millet, all you must be knowing that it has lot of iron, isn't it? But its color is dark. How can we improve its color? If you just sell pearl millet flour, it may not get good acceptability. Pearl millet flour has another problem, that low shelf life. How can we enhance? Can you recognize it? It is a pearl millet product? It is not, because it is of different color. And when we are trying to color, no synthetic color, all from organic source. Our turmeric, having very good in terms of having it properties to contain what? Antimicrobial activity, and has a very natural yellow color which is attractive as well. So, from that, and to play with its nutrition, because this kind of product you might be eating as a Kurkure brand, isn't it, from the market. The important issues that we have tried to resolve through this is, you can see that pearl millet based snack, where protein you can see it is more than 12%, whereas if you look at commercial snack, it is only 6%. So, we have doubled. And fat requirement, which you are looking for, that it should have less fat. So, what we have done, fat you can see that it has only 22%, but in commercial product it is 40%. So, again we have halved that. And iron you can see in commercial product it is only 1 milligram per 100 gram, whereas we have been able to, because we have used pearl millet as a source, so it is more than 5 milligram per 100 gram. So, this is nutritional enhancement, and then through this we have tried to alleviate all problems, dull color of pearl millet, presence of anti-nutritional factor, this because this has been processed at high temperature. So, anti-nutritional factors are also inactivated to a acceptable level. Then low shelf life of flour, only few days it can, but this product you can keep it for 6 to 8 months without any problem, no issue. Then protein quality, which is limited by low lysine level. So, for that we have used here pulses to increase that particular part. So, protein quality also we have improved. Then we have, in this process we have tried to target 5 to 15 years of age group where this kind of product is more in use, and we have taken this ICMR guidelines as a research. We have taken ICMR guidelines for RDA, which suggests that for this age group you need 40 gram iron protein and 16 milligram iron, and then the Bureau of Indian Standards suggests that supplementary food should only fulfill 1/3 of RDA requirement. So, that has been taken into account, and then we also have taken into account the BIS code for such product, that it suggests that what should be the calorie, what should be the ash content, what should be the fiber content, then what should be the total microbial load. So, we have tried to look into those things. Pearl millet based pasta. Pasta is mainly what you find in the market is wheat based. So, wheat has its problem in terms of gluten allergenicity, then lack of many macronutrients. So, we tried to see whether we can make pasta alone with pearl millet, but because it does not have gluten network, so binding is poor. It can form, but when we try to cook it, because pasta is not a ready to eat item, it has to be cooked. So, when you cook it, lot of loss will take place. So, how to, either we try to put adhesive into it, or we try to put some gluten into it or whole wheat into it. So we have gone for that. We have different kinds of studies we have made, the effect of particle size of flour, then proportion of wheat flour and pearl millet, then dye, because in extrusion process dye plays a very important role. So different dye designs we have used, the wall thickness of the dye we have tried to vary, and then the effect of whole extrusion process we have tried to study. Here what you see is the effect of particle size. We found with pure pearl millet we have used, but when we cooked, none of them could survive the test of integrity. They disintegrated during cooking. But even then there was some better in 0.406 mm size, there was slightly better stability, and therefore we have taken this particle size. Then we have different ingredient proportion. What you can see in the bottom and top difference is in terms of what? Color. When pearl millet dominates in the composition, color darkens and they try to crumble when you cook, but when wheat flour is dominant, then color is white and they retain the structure. So up to 50-50 we have seen that you can, to some extent you can retain the color, but darkness is more. If you want to get benefit of nutrient, go for 50-50. If you give more prominence to color, then go for 80-20 or 70-30. Then after this we have tried to again incorporate functional ingredients from different sources, that is moringa. Moringa is one of the very taught as for nutritional point of view. You can see here the iron, zinc, calcium and antioxidant. They are a wonderful profile in moringa. Then use of some waste material, ripe mango peel. We have again tried to remove, dry it, make powder out of it. We have profiled it. It has also excellent profile. Carrot, whole carrot we have tried to convert into flour, then we have characterized. And soya as you have again seen, it is again for nutritional point of view. It has many good profiles. So from all these we have tried to how much we can incorporate into pasta to make it a functional pasta. This is breakfast cereal as a substitute to corn flakes, and this is made from corn, finger millet. Finger millet again all millets, they are known as now called as nutri-cereals. So finger millet, and finger millet again darker than your pearl millet. So we have tried to put whole powder of carrot to make it a functional breakfast cereal, because it is very lightweight. So it keeps on floating at the milk surface. So you can use it as a breakfast cereal. We have determined its bowl life. And we have the corn we have used, because lot of corn varieties have been developed in recent years. So we have used quality protein maize, which is known for better protein quality because of essential amino acid profile. So we have tried to compare QPM and non-QPM based breakfast cereal. Then this, you all are aware, what is this? Rice and dal. Rice and dal. But this is not from the field. We have fabricated into machine, through extrusion process. What is the ingredient? Ingredient is rice that breaks fine rice, which has no commercial value, that you cannot sell in the market. Half of the rice is still sold in the market at reduced cost, but fine rice is not sold in the market. So that fine brokens can be reshaped, reconstructed into this shape. And while you doing, because the requirement is you must make a powder, and when you have converted into powder, now you have the opening, you have got an opening to add any color to it, add any nutrition to it. We can, rice has 5 to 6% protein. We can now add it, make it 15%, 10%, 12% protein into it. That is the flexibility that we have. And then this can be cooked at a very small heat. If you have a bowl of water, hot water, you need not to to give it heating. Just put this rice and cover it. This rice is cooked and ready for eating purpose. That is advantage. Similarly, pulse you have. Wherever why protein has soybean has 40%, your other protein other pulses have 20 to 24% protein. We can increase it. We can increase other component into it, because even protein quality is restricted in cereals or pulses. We can use complementary and we can enhance its protein quality. So this is again ready to eat popped products. Popping two are very common: popped rice or popped corn. Popcorn is very widely available in the countryside. Everywhere you can go, and based on place it's a value different. If you go to a cinema hall, the cost is much more. On a roadside, its cost is much less. But this popping in cereals is a quality of starch. All grains, your nutri-cereals or rice, wheat, all contain starch. Why can't? Now we have started, even wheat grains are popped, other grains can be popped. Issue is, if you go for popping percent is less in these grains. So you have to play with scientifically that how can we enhance the popping yield in these. So we have done some work on this, that how can we enhance, and we have found, and while we are doing it, you can see that on right side 3 ingredients, that one is fully bloomed, fully bursted, one partially bursted, and a small portion is which is does not burst at all. So that we can call that is simply roasted. So every constituent can have its use. We can make use of it, and we can segregate it, and we can send it. And we have seen this kind of product, if you pack it properly, up to 2 months it remains as a fresh. You may not have a feel that it has not been cooked right now. We also did some studies on, in all popcorn, you might have seen the breeders are working a lot on pop varieties, developing pop varieties of corn to have higher yield. Here also we try to evaluate, we drew some lines from NVPGR and try to evaluate whether there is a diversity in popping quality of these grains, and we have been able to screen some of them. This is simple roasting soybean, very widely and whole grain. How can you use yellow soybean, then black soybean and green soybean? These are in different parts of the country. Most used is yellow soybean. So this has been simple roasting has been done, and we find that you can use it as a ready to eat product. It has a shelf life of more than 6 months. This is corn nut, which is from the sweet corn. Sweet corn, if you are using it for fresh grain, you have a getting very good value from the market. But if you are not able to sell, if you keep it in store, means after drying you will store, then it squeezes and it has all problems of insects, pests, and there is no use, even you cannot grind it. So we have tried to convert it into again whole. It is a ready to eat crunchy snacks. This is one bitter gourd. Why I am talking about increasing diabetes? We all know that bitter gourd has a very good potential against diabetes. This has been again roasted, and its shelf life we have found that it remains in good condition even up to 2 years of storage. Soya nut, sometimes review of literature gives you a very good background, but sometimes even if proceed without review of literature, you come out with a good product. So that happened in this case. We did not go for review of literature, because in review of literature later on, when we have after developing our own product, we found these kind of soybean grains, dark grains, are being sold as a soya nut. Then we realized what without review of literature we have done. We did a much better work. So this is a commercial product. We have tried to at scientific level, we have tried to measure its texture, its appearance, and its anti-nutritional factor that to ensure that it is digestible. This is again soya product, milk, and tofu from this milk. You cannot say ask any person to eat certain product. It is driven by your own preferences. So soybean has been converted into another flaked soybean. So this is another version of nut, whole grain it was there. Now it has been made into flakes, larger surface area, and again it has been developed as a snack. Corn flakes we have a very well, it is a commercial product. Kellogg's is a multinational brand available in it. Do we know what variety they will use? We don't know. Do we know how they are making it? We don't know. So we have tried to go through two different processes. One is through grits, converting grits into flakes, and another is making from grits pellets and then pellets to be flaked. So that is through extrusion process. If we go by extrusion process, we have enormous opportunity to enhance its nutritional aspect, its color aspects, and so both have been tried here in our lab. This is one from chickpea. Chickpea, one variety, maybe you are knowing, this is one of the variety that Pusa Green 112, which remains even after maturity, it remains green and retaining its greenness. When you give it heat treatment, it is darkened, so keeping its, then these are dehydrated products. It is a simple technique, you can make use of sun energy and lot of dehydrated products for commercialization purpose, those who are startups who cannot afford, so for them, and then some of the fruits and vegetable based product, and I will specifically try to mention the technology, that is extraction, encapsulation, impregnation and beverage technology. So lot of work through how can we natural color we can incorporate into the processed product. So on this we have worked, and then finally one slide just I will try to make use of or try to share with you that enterprise development, if anybody, these all products one can go for making and establishing a processing industry, but issues that are before them, investment, where from the investment will come, the risk bearing ability of the people, technical know-how, then licensing requirement and marketing, how to market these products are very important, and anyone coming or looking for this must have to look at it very closely and learn the techniques, learn the tools, how to market it, what are the licensing requirements. So with these few points, thank you so much.
So now this talk is open for discussion. If you have any queries, questions, please come in front and ask.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for your informative presentation. Sir, I want to ask question about this mulberry leaf, which is having antioxidant property and anti-diabetic property. Is there any research going on this leaf or in this crop?
In our place,
Yes,
no.
Okay, sir. Means
But it can be. It is similar to when we talk about moringa leaf,
yes,
we can do it.
because people
Similar
are,
type of.
yes, sir. People are thinking that it is having that anti-diabetic property. They are going to going in a direction that of making up tea or some other different products. So I'm asking that.
Yeah,
what-
that can be. If it is a proven that these ingredients are there, we have all the technologies that we have talked about can be used encapsulation. If there are some phytonutrients, we can encapsulate it. Even again, another level of processing we can give to have if it has a stability problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Please come.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a very informative talk. Sir, I want to know that you said about investment. So how a farmer can, I mean, is there a government policies a farmer because their income is very less? So how he can start a small scale farmer?
Not lot of things have been started at government level also. Ministry of Food Processing at government level, at even at state level, lot of promotional activities are being given by these industries now. So that can be explored. Just as an example, I can tell you one very not even eighth pass boy from around Jhansi. He was in my touch and he started actually, he was not at all knowing what to do. Eighth not pass, that means you can, mental level you can understand. Through some contacts, he came in touch with me, and one day I was taking him through my lab, and I was showing all extrusion and these things. When he came to that grinding part, that grinding is one requirement for extrusion. So when I was saying that this can also be a business, he said, "Sir, I have got my business, let us go back to your room." He came back to my room, he said, "I don't want to see anything," because that is a very small machine that can cost maybe around 20,000 rupees. He said, "I have got." He went back, but even he had no risk-bearing ability or were prompt to manage 20,000. So he was going to banks, etc. No bank was giving because he was not an educated person. He didn't have anything. Then from subsidy scheme of state government, he got some grant, and he started working on wheat milling. And within 6 months, he put another oil extraction machine. And for last 3 years, he is, you cannot recognize that boy, the kind of change. So you should have inner urge that I have to be. An entrepreneur has that. We have to, encourage such kind of people if we come around anytime, anywhere.
So I think so we'll end here. Later you can discuss with sir, and then you can get your questions answered. I think you all will agree that this talk was loaded with nutrient and then a lot of excluded products, processed products, soya nuts and all those things. And really I think I enjoyed each and every part of this talk. Especially sir has thrown different shades on different aspects of processing, different types of processing, post-harvest losses, and then how best we can use this as an opportunity to establish your own companies. This will be definitely beneficial not for us, for all those who are struggling hard to get the job. So this is the right area where they can venture, and definitely this nutrient-based food industry, so definitely they have long way to go. So with this brief note, now I request Professor Division of Biochemistry to please felicitate today's speaker.
Thank you, Dr.
Great.
Thank you.
It was really mesmerizing talk.